My name is Doug Downs. Guest this week, Brad Whitworth. Thanks for joining, Brad.
It's a pleasure to be able to join you here in Toronto.
And I know you're from Northern California, but you've been to Toronto many times, including, the mid to late 70s for the first IABC World Conference?
My very first IABC World Conference was right here in 1978. And I will say I was of age, but I won't say exactly which age I was. And we have had 7 IABC World Conferences here in Toronto, so it's a very good stopping spot for the IABC crowd. It attracts great attention from around the world.
It does. It's a strong city for IBC. Brad, you're an IBC fellow, past chair of IBC. And if you've been to any of the IBC World Conferences and there's that voice of God, can you do a little snippet of that?
Sure. I was going to say the broadcast background helps a little bit. So I'm the one who gets to announce things like, in just a few moments, your program will begin. Please make sure your cell phones are set to silent as you find your seat.
Yeah. Over these years, I got into public relations in the very early 2000s, was in broadcasting, kind of like you before that. And I look back over my time, 30 some odd years, and it feels in so many ways that it hasn't changed. The technologies have. But one of the challenges is this sender or this broadcast mentality that we want to tell them, and we want to, this educate word kind of gets to me.
I think some of that comes from the education a lot of people had, which was coming from sort of the mass communications, the journalism training, where you go out, you get the story, and you put it into the channel and get things to people, whether it was a broadcast channel or a newspaper or a magazine or what have you. So we've been storytellers, and that tradition still continues.
It's good.
But I think the big switch that I've seen is that we have really put some amazing power in the hands of our audiences. On many fronts. One is our audiences actually have turned into producers themselves. I mean, they're carrying around a small broadcast studio in their pocket and have the ability to create their own channel and do information. So they don't necessarily have to rely upon the few sources of news. And we talked earlier, I mean, when we were growing up, there were, 3 networks and that was it. And
Peter Jennings, Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw.
And
right?
if you go back before that, it was like Huntley Brinkley and Walter Cronkite.
Right.
And, there were a few places and it was all sort of the same. And it came to you at a certain time and you had to dial in at
11 o'clock, the 11 o'clock news.
Or, in the Midwest, it was like a 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yeah. So that is changing in so many ways. One is the proliferation of channels. You can choose where it is that you want to get your news. The other thing that I think comes along with that is you can choose when you want to get your news. No longer are you bound by that time restriction. And all of that's going on in our real world, our lives outside of corporations and the work that we do. But we really haven't applied those same qualities, those same techniques inside. I mean, we still think that and that tends to be sort of the senior leaders and corporate communications teams, we decide what it is that you need to know. Internal audiences, we still sort of have a one-size-fits-all, a lot of stuff going out to everybody in an organization, even large organizations that are multidimensional, have different lines of business. I even take it down to the individual recipient. Just because 2 people have the same job responsibilities in the same department, they may consume information in very different ways. Someone may love to live in the moment, and as soon as it happens, I want to see the thing showing up in my device. Mm-hmm. Others may just once a week summary is fine for me. I've been at this for a long time. I sort of know what's going on. So, we haven't embraced this change from what I call sort of the provider information, supplier information, the top-down driven to the recipient-driven communications strategy.
Okay.
And it's going to take some time.
We do look at the user journey. We take surveys with the digital world. We're able to look at clicks to impressions ratios, things like that. But inevitably, every comms plan that gets initiated with me or a strategy, it begins with we need them to understand that kind of thing. So is it that we as communicators, even senior communicators, are not getting that across to senior leadership, or is it that is simply what is going to spark a communications effort is when we need to move the dial?
Yeah. Well, there are times when you will rest much better at night knowing that everybody heard something. But then after that, I think we need to begin to recognize that there are differences in people, the way they consume information, the way they want information. And the other one that I keep saying to leaders and reminding them is everyone has a different starting point and a different finish line. So just because you communicated something once doesn't mean that everybody's heard it, because you have just hired this many new people into your organization where you have to almost find a way to reach them with some of the information that everybody knows this. Well, not everybody knows everything. And I would also go, the mentality in general is that everybody needs to know everything. That was that sort of one size fits all.
Yeah.
And the answer is very few people need to know everything that's going on. And in our private lives, we have this opportunity to unsubscribe from the things that we no longer find useful. Hey, well, I want to get on this. And then it goes, yeah, I've gotten about as much value from this. It's repeating it. Whatever reason you unsubscribe. We really don't have that unsubscribe button for a lot of the stuff that goes on inside organizations other than the delete key. And there are some things that I think trigger that. I mean, if you have a message from as the header on something, people get used to, this is not going to me, this is going to lots of people. Oh, look at that, and then just delete.
Yeah.
And we need to start to put information in bite-sized chunks so people can decide, and also target it to sub-audiences inside.
This is really interesting because lately I've been on this tangent about creating identity moments for whatever target group. That sounds terrible. Whatever my target is, I need them to know within 3 to 5 seconds or feel some kind of identity moment. Is that something you go into as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
And how do you do it? That's the more important question.
This is something that I don't think that AI can do, but it's the creativity, and it's the trying to stand out from the white noise. I mean, while I love the idea that people go out and benchmark against others and find out what some of the leaders are doing, if you start doing what everybody else is doing, you are just adding to the white noise. So I think the creative aspect now is can you capture in a headline quickly what you're trying to convey? Can you put it in that lead sentence instead of burying it? And if you sort of go back to the traditional way we used to work on communications in the corporate world, it was like the main thing, whether the press release or the article that's going to be in the newsletter or what have you. That's where we put all of our time and effort, and that's the thing that we sent around and got approvals on. And then at the last second, we would slapdash on a quick headline, maybe a blurb, maybe a caption that went with the photo. And what happens is the consumers are using it in inverse relationships. They're looking at the headline, the blurb, the caption, and if it's good enough, they might dive in through the lead and get into the story. So we're investing the least amount of time in the things that people look at the most, and we need to turn that equation upside down so that we're putting the information front that can pull people in, and if they only get the headline and maybe the first sentence, they've got the gist of it. And then we write it well enough that they want to go more, and if it appeals to them, they'll dive in a little bit deeper.
Give me an example of something you saw or heard that worked really well, that stood out to you. You had that identity moment for yourself, and it pulled you in, and you said, okay, I need to go beyond the caption, beyond the headline, and I do want to absorb this. And did you have previous drama or previous history with this story? Because I also think we're more likely to invest our time into things we've already been following.
Well, I'll give you one great example of working with an executive vice president whom I've been supporting, who came to the United States when she was 4 years old, speaking no English. She was born in Havana, Cuba, has turned out to be an amazing leader. Her English is fluent. But she was asked to deliver a diversity and inclusion moment at a large gathering of employees. And I said, instead of starting out in English, why don't you start out in Spanish?
Oh,
and
nice.
Go for about 2 minutes and just sort of see if people in the audience are squirming and asking what's going on. And you connect with the people of Latina background, Latinos in the audience, but you're probably going to make some other people going, what's going on? And then just break into English and say, this is how I felt when I was 4 years old in this country for the first time, speaking no English. And we need to all be aware of, the needs to be able to make the connections and find a way to communicate, across a diverse audience. And so it's like I knew her background, and it's like what if we turned the tables and turned it upside down? Part of that also was my 10 years of working in Asia Pacific and Latin America, where I think everyone needs to put themselves in a position where they are a visible minority and understand what it's like to not understand the language, not understand the culture, and still have to make connections and do things right. And that doesn't happen often enough for enough people.
I love that approach with opening an Espanol, because it makes people fit into her
Yeah.
shoes in that moment
Yeah.
very quickly.
And I only speak French, so I was very little help, and I didn't understand a word she was saying. Although,
I'd love to know, are you fluent in French? Because if you're fluent and you're from Northern California and I'm from Canada and your French is better, shame on me.
Mon père était un professeur de français. My dad was a French professor.
Oui?
So,
Oui?
yeah. And I will tell my one quick story. There was a time when I was at a table with Jean Chrétien, who at the time was the head of the Liberal Party, and so he had no
90s.
further,
This is in the 90s. Yeah.
no further political aspirations. Wink, wink. And Jean Chrétien was explaining to me, he was saying, let me tell you about Règle Santé, let me tell you about Parti Québécois, let me tell you about Je me souviens. I said, I actually knew a little bit more than I gave him credit for. It was an Anglo audience, an IABC audience in Winnipeg, and a young man stood up during Q&A and asked him a question in French, and Monsieur Chrétien responded in his native Québécois, and then he goes, "Oh, excuse me, I must do this in English for my American friend." And so I said out loud as I could, "Pardonnez-moi, Monsieur Chrétien, c'est pas nécessaire, je parle un peu le français." And he was a bit taken aback, but I think there's a lesson there.
He would have loved it. He would have loved that.
Well, there's a lesson there. You cannot assume that, one, your message is getting through, or that the person doesn't speak a language, or that. I mean, so, face value, don't make strange assumptions like, why was he even pointing out that because I was American, I probably didn't speak French.
So that leads to, we are complex people. Everyone I have a conversation with has many, many layers. They're not simple. They're not stupid. No. How do we manage to create those identity moments without, we live in a world of offending people. Like we're so divisive, right? And if I manage to create an identity moment with someone, I alienate maybe a whole bunch of other people. Do I just live with that? Do I realize that that's my target audience and, oh, well, I've alienated? How do I be strong without estranging from others?
I think it's an absolutely great question. And it comes as we see this, a channel for anything and everything.
You can't. That's a channel for nobody.
And the sad part is the algorithms drive us to these extremes. It's sort of like the middle of the road and the centrist position is sort of disappearing, and the inoffensive part of it is boring. And yes. So we have to figure out a way, though, to communicate. And I think the other part is just to be sensitive to human beings and put yourself in the audience's shoes. And if you can't do it alone, one of the things that I also say is very, very helpful is the AI that we're afraid is taking everyone's job away. AI is also a great editor. And if you turn it into a tool that, if you've prepared a script or if you've written a story, feed it through AI and give it the prompt that says, this is going to be read by an audience that is, and describe the audience and say, would this audience find this offensive in any way, shape, or form? And how can I change it so that I'm appealing to a larger audience without losing the message that's embedded in this? So
have you ever had a discussion with AI, an LLM, say, okay, be offended by this and charge me with your offenses and let me see if I can stand up to it?
No, but we now have AI tools that are inserting mistakes into copy because people find that if it's too perfect, this must have been done by AI. So to make it a human, it inserts errors, which is sort of like the
very charming, very charming.
You turn off spell check. That'll be getting you there too, and your thumb on the keyboards.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's gone beyond removing the M dash now. It's to all these other things.
And punctuation. I'm still trying to figure out if it knows serial commas and does them the way I like to do them or not do them. But it can be a tool. And I think there are people. What I've said is that AI is not there to take away roles, but it's changing the role that we all play.
Yeah.
And the creativity that I used for the longest time in creating the end product, the creativity is going into producing the prompt. And there's some of my things, they actually tell me I've run out of characters to do the prompt.
Wow.
But it's sort of like if you had an agency, if you were lucky enough to have a PR agency or an ad agency doing work for you, the better the brief that you gave them, the more likely you were to get a good product back. And what we've done is sort of that now is I'm talking not to an agency of a group of people, of creatives. I'm talking to this tool out there that produces something. And the better and more explicit I can be in what it is that I hope for, the more likely I am to get something that's close. But then the other piece is you have to own whatever it is that Claude or ChatGPT or anybody is giving you.
Right. It belongs to you. It's up to you to scrutinize that and make sure how many times a day I challenge Claude and say, did you dream this up?
Yeah. Can that be right?
Yeah. And it'll, yep, I did. Sorry.
Yeah.
I invented that. I thought it would fit. Oh,
yeah.
I know you live basically in wine country. I hope at some point you get down to Enniskillen where they make the ice wines in Niagara. It is a gorgeous area.
During my last trip, we went down to the Niagara region and had some of the wonderful wines from there. And wherever we travel, my wife and I, she is the smart one on the wine side of things. I sort of follow in her wake. She's got her like level 2 somm, and she's always interviewing winemakers and talking to them. And I'm sort of in her wake, let's put it that way. But what I love about it is that every place you go, for example, all 50 U.S. states make wine. Now, many shouldn't.
Alaska makes wine?
They do.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, you get Hawaiian, you get fruit wines and other things that are sort of, they're not using the same varietals that you would find from France or Italy or Australia.
I'd be willing to try it.
And we try them. And I will also say that we've got a 94-point award-winning wine from our own vineyard in Northern California. And sometimes the others don't quite make it to that level. So I'm happy where we are, and I do love Russian River wines, and only wish that some of that stuff could come into Canada a little bit more easily.
Yes, yes.
And there will be a day.
We should have a trade agreement or something.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today.
This has been just great, Doug. So thank you for inviting me, and let's do it again.
Mm-hmm.